All right, everybody. You ready? All right, everybody. Hey, Shabbat Shalom. This is Christelle speaking. Nobody's told you they love you today through Yeshua, Yahusha. Christelle, do you love you too? Okay, so this week we have the current Torah portion is the Mishpatim. And what that is, it means actually judgments. In Hebrew, we're talking about the judgments are alike. So anyway, and you'll read it, and you can go to Exodus. The Torah portion is Exodus 21 verses 1 through 24, and then 18. And then we have in the prophets, you're going to go and read Isaiah the 66th chapter verses 1 through 24, and then the Gospels go to Mark and read the 9th chapter verses 40 through 50. Okay, and that's what we're going to concentrate on. And so we have some members that wants to concentrate on this time the gospel of the Torah portion. First and foremost, Father Yah, give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. We ever give you praise, honor, and glory, and we thank you for all things. We praise you, and we thank you for all things. In the name of Yeshua, and the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, we thank you for all things. Yay! All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk about because of the laws, everybody understands about the laws and what's being given. But okay, I'm going to talk about this, the grace versus the law concept. Okay, because sometimes I think we actually get it backwards, and a lot of Christians, for instance, a lot of people believe that there's some people that believe that we must keep Father Yah's laws in order to be saved, and then there's some people that believe we don't have to. If we keep Father's law, then we're not following grace. So actually, it's just a little bit interesting out there. But what he says in Exodus 21:1, he says, "And these are the ordinances which you are to set before them." And this is what he's talking to Moses. He's telling him, excuse me, Father Yah is. And so what we're talking about is how, we know how the Torah contains the laws, the commandments, which talks about the law. And a lot of people usually thinking about it as a list of rules of the do's and the don'ts. And then they forget that it also, that's where they're stuck at. And they're forgetting that it also contains a lot of beautiful stories from creation in the days of Moses all the way through to the end, where we have and also going into the New Testament and to the end, we have a lot of beautiful things, a lot of beautiful lessons, just a whole lot, but people sometimes want to get stuck there. So, but I want you to understand that, and I think we do understand in this group already, that is more than just some kind of legal code. But again, now sometimes they're calling it the book of instructions, right? The word, because the word Torah actually does mean a book of instructions. So the laws and commandments are found in the Torah, of course. This is Father Yah's instructions. So it's basically telling his people how he wants them to live. And the Torah is like some kind of usual, it's for us, it's maybe like a user manual. But this is telling us how we're supposed to live and how he doesn't want us to hurt others, ourselves, and how to keep from doing this. This is how are we going to do this without hurting other people? How are we going to live? What's going to hurt us? This is things to keep us good. This is a love. This is a thing of love, and how to honor Father and our parents and so forth. So this is what he's telling us, and he's explaining because of his love, he's even given us a day of rest. See, and so there's a lot of Exodus 21 through 23 kind of talks about a lot of ancient, a lot of people see it as legal codes. And there's 613 commandments actually. But see, it's not really like some people make it to be, because Like you have different sections. You have some for the women, some for the animals, some for how to cleanse the animals, some for about this. It's it's like if we look at our own laws, we have I don't know how many more than that. I mean, look, we can't if you like we have a law you can't run a red light. That's a law, okay? And we have a wash your hands, like in their comment, wash your hands, and this is ordinances. This is things that's going to make things make you better. This is things going to keep you from getting sick. And like they found out what he said, okay, if you wash your hands, a lot of women was getting infections in the early days and pretty much killing them when they was giving birth. And then they found out, gee whiz, you had to have running water to wash your hands. See, so Father Yah was already giving us all this. The things he was giving us was out of love and ordinances, things that was going to help us, things that's going to keep us to help each other and keep us from hurting each other and keeping us to help ourselves and our families. But a lot of people want to take them and making this something is bad. See, a lot of for some reason, a lot of Christian teachers even seem to think, kind of teach that the law of the Torah is that's a bad thing. A lot of people think they're a bad thing. That's because, for one thing, they ain't reading it themselves and they're concentrating on what everybody else is saying. So, but they teach it's a bad thing, because it's taught like it's the opposite of grace. That's what it's taught like. And then a lot of times you start talking about, you hear people say, we're no longer under the law, but we're under grace. And that implies that a lot of people are saying that only thing we need to do is believe in Yeshua and not to be concerned with the old laws. And we call this grace versus law. But the thing about this is check this out. So you're telling me that I don't not have to be concerned with it. So in other words, you're telling me because I'm under grace, I can go ahead and kill. Because I'm under grace, I go ahead and steal, and I can lie, and I can cheat, and I can commit adultery, and I can do all them things because I'm under grace and not be concerned with the law. Do you understand? That's what he's saying. But in the commandments, it says, and I think it's First John. He says, well, if you love me, you're going to keep my commandments. And he says, all the commandments is based on all of it's based on this, and that is the commandments. Love you. All of the commandments is based on this. Love God, yourselves, and others, which is what the commandments is actually based on. Love God, yourself, and others, and that's Father Yah. Okay, and so let's think a little bit about the grace versus the law. What is it that we mean when we're saying that we're not under the law? Does that mean we don't have to keep Father Yah's words or his rules or his ordinances? Is that what it's saying? I don't think so. A lot of people go by Paul's writings, which is kind of causing a lot of I don't know, they kind of just look at Paul's writings, but I think a whole lot of times they're misunderstanding what Paul's writing. Well, they actually do misunderstand what's Paul's writing, because, he said something about, okay, we have Galatians 3:23, we have Galatians 5:18, and he's saying before faith come, we were kept in the custody under the law. And then he says, and then he'll talk about if you're led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. And then then he says, okay. Well, anyway, I'll get to that in just a minute. So it's easier to misunderstand. If you're not reading the whole thing, if you're not rightly dividing the word, go from the beginning to the end and rightly dividing the word, you can really get confused on what's being said. And that's the reason Father tells us to rightly divide the word, to cross every T, to dot every I, to know the who, what, when, where, and why, and even how. Okay, so Paul himself is realizing that some people are misunderstanding what he's saying, what he's teaching. So what he's doing, he tells us, he goes in Romans 6 chapter verses 1 and 2. So he goes there and he's saying, grace isn't giving us a license to sin against God. He said, well, he's basically saying, what shall we say then? Are we to continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid, and may that never be. How can we who died to sin still live in it? I mean, just a minute, you're dying to sin, how can you still live in it? Basically, no. And then he talks about in Romans 3:31, he says, do we nullify the law of faith? No, we're not nullifying it. No. He said, may that never be either, God forbid. He says, on the contrary, we are establishing the law. That's what he's saying. So Paul is not teaching believers that they don't have to keep the laws. Then they don't have to keep Father Yah's rules. That's not what he's saying. So in Paul's day, basically, and some calls it by circumcision and stuff, but anyway, in them days, um, a lot of the Jewish believers they were taught that before Gentiles can enter into the kingdom of heaven, they pretty much had to become or convert or need to be Jewish or become Jewish, and that the idea that the Gentile must become Jewish. Paul, I think this is what Paul's calling you're living under the law. Paul calls this is you're being saved, is what Paul calls it not being under the law. So, because like I said, a lot of them wanted to become circumcised, this and that, and they thought in order to be that. So, but Paul believed that the Gentiles became the sons of Abraham, and through the faith of Messiah, through the people of Yah, Israel, the people of Yah, and they done this by grace through Yeshua. Through Yeshua. Okay. So they did not need to earn that status. They didn't need to earn a status to be under the law to become Jewish people, is what he's saying. You don't do that. Okay? He's not telling them that they're free, that they don't have to obey the law. He's just saying that's not how they have to get to heaven. You're under grace, but you don't have to go through all this stuff to legally become Father Yah's children, because that happened through faith. And they don't have, Anyway, I'm trying to figure out if I said that right. But anyway, you basically get the idea. You don't have to follow this laws. You don't got to get circumcised. You don't have to do this or do that. That's not how you get into the kingdom of heaven. You get in there by grace. This is what Yeshua has done for you. Yahusha, he died for you that you can be saved. John 3:16, John 3:17, and then he tells about John 14:6. Okay, this is what he's saying. Where they've been told that, they have to do this, they have to do that, they have to do everything else. And so, but Paul is not telling them. So this is where he's saying, no, you're misunderstanding. That's not how you do it. He didn't say you don't have to. He said you don't have to become under the law to become a child of the true and living Father Yah. You don't have to do that. That's where grace comes in. But you do have to obey the commandments, because that's where he says in 1 John. He says, if you love me, you're going to keep my commandments. This is what he says throughout his word. It's more than just there. It's throughout his words. If you love me, you're going to keep my commandments. So basically, the word is not it's not really a grace versus law. It's grace as a free gift. It's a free gift of salvation. And that's for those who believe and who want it. That's what grace is. And that's believe in the Son, the Father, the Son, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This is believing in the Son who came in John 3:16, 3:17. You believe what he done. You believe he gave his life for you and he rose again. He sealed it. You believe that he died for you. You believe that he was the final sacrifice, which we have read about in Exodus through there about the laws of the sacrifice. Go read this, and this will explain why this was like it was and why it had to be like it was. And so anyway, but you got to believe this. You got to believe in the Son, and what the commandments are, the laws. What it is it is the loving instructions. This is because he says all the laws are based on this. This is love. Love your father, love Father God, your Father, Son, Holy Spirit, love Father, yourself, love others. It's all brought on this. All the laws is based on that love, and basically this is what he's saying. You got to love. And we listen to the instructions because it helps us, just like in the natural world. People say, oh, I'm living under the law, but they live under the law every day. They pay their taxes. They pay their taxes. They send their kids to school because the law says, oh, they get shots or whatever. And they take their money, they go in a store and they pay you for food. People that's actually obeying the law. This is what they do. They do it every day. Every single day. They don't run the red lights, They go to the courthouse, and whenever and stand before a judge whenever it's time. If they don't, they're thrown in jail. They don't kill because they're thrown in jail. They don't steal because they're thrown in jail. Got consequences. They don't do it. So people are obeying laws every day, but yet they say they don't want to obey the Father laws, the laws of the Father, which a lot of them too, if you look at it, are based on what's going on. So this grace versus law things, that's false. It's not grace versus law. It's you don't have to go do all this stuff. You don't have to go, basically, as I'm going to say it, sum it up, you don't have to go get a circumcision to be a father's child, to be saved. You're saved by the grace, but because you're saved by grace, you're going to want to keep them. You're going to want to not hurt your neighbors. You're going to want to love your neighbors. You're going to want to do what's right. You that's what you're going to do. You're going to want to take care of yourselves. You want to honor God. You want to take care of others. This is what it is. So they're meant to work hand in hand, not oppose each other. Okay? It's like, well, like your child, or adopted child. Let's say adopted child. You have your child, you come in and you tell, and this is the way it was saying on one of the lessons, that was on a tour lesson, and I think is a really good example. They said you had like a man, he gets a child and he adopts this child and he comes in and he says, okay, this is the rules of the house. You have to do the dishes, you're my child. I've adopted you, but we in this house, we have rules. You have to do the dishes after you eat. You got to do this, you got to do that. But what happened is this adopted child, he what he did is, he started to think, well, if I don't clear up the dishes, if I don't do this and that and that, I will no longer be adopted. I will no longer be a son. I'm going to be orphaned. And then basically they find out, the man finds out, and he says, you silly child, the rules of this house are not meant that you have to earn your place in this house, in this family. You are our family. The rules is the obligations that helps you, is because you are a part of this family now. Because you working together as a family, you working together, this makes us, this is a part of the family. This is what makes the family work. Anyway, and that's just the basic, but anyway, boil down to it. When it boils down to it, we are a part of Father's family because of grace. And because we are of grace, we do this. We keep the law because of love and because we love Father Yah. So they get things backwards. It's not that we have to keep the law in order to be saved. It's because we are saved, we keep it. And that's basically the gist of it. We keep it because we are saved. And I'm trying to go through this fast so don't take a whole lot of time. But anyway, that would be the tour portion. And this week, the laws, this is the words. He gave them to us to help us, these ordinances. And they're not grievous. And I know that Yeshua came and said, well, there's some things that's, which is another topic. But anyway, there's a lot of things that sometimes people put on you that don't belong on you. I mean, and that's like some of the scribes and Pharisees did. And when Yahusha came, Yahusha, when he came, he told some of the Pharisees, he said, look, you're making these people twice as worthy as hell as you are. So yeah, people do start adding things on. So that's why you've got to know them. People do turn things around. That's why you've got to study them. That's why you learn for yourself. You don't take man's word for it. You go learn for yourself. You study to show yourself approved before Father and man. He doesn't say you go study somebody else's work. He says you go study his work. Okay? You study out. And that also means the customs, the times, the places. That means everything. You're not going to understand a lot until you understand the schoolmaster. That's one reason you have to know the schoolmaster, so you can understand what's happening. Father didn't do away with the law. He didn't do away with the Old Testament. He showed us the New Testament. He showed us the grace. And because of the grace, we do the Old Testament. Only laws that was done away with is the laws of sacrifice, and that's because Yahusha himself became the final sacrifice. All right? But we don't have permission to sin. And guess what? Your name can be blotted out of the Lamb's Book of Life. Read Revelations. Anyway, I love you. Love you too.
All right, y'all just hang on and we'll just go ahead and finish it off here.
Father Yah said so. John 3:16 and 3:17 and John 14:6. No man can go to the Father
all
but
right, y'all just hang on.
Anyway, I love you. Love you too. Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, and this is the follow up with somebody was asking. Anyway, this is a follow up with the adoption process. Like the story I was telling you that I had heard about the man who adopted the child, and the child thought he had to work out because the man gives some rules. He thought he had to, keep. He just tried to work and work and work and work, so that way he wouldn't become an orphan again. Okay, and then the man explained to him, "I adopted you because I love you, but the rules is because that's what it takes to keep this family working together as a unit, keeping us working together as one, is because I love you all. That I gave rules because I don't want you to get a bigger burden than the other one. But anyway, I want this family to work together, and get it to work together and work right. We have to have rules, but that doesn't mean I don't love you, or that doesn't mean I'm going to cast you out." But now let's go to the part 2 on that. Part 2 is this. Part 2 is if a man can return. The Father talks about a man turning to his own vomit, and it talks about there's no more forgiveness of sins. For instance, if you blaspheme the Holy Spirit, I caution everybody on that. Just side note, don't blaspheme the Holy Spirit. It says there's no forgiveness in this life nor the next. If you do, the Ruach HaKodesh, so be careful. Very careful about that. But anyway, he talks about in Revelations, and it talks about a few other places here and there, but it says in Revelations your name can be blotted out of the Lamb's Book of Life. And when the 10 days of awe, they're praying that your name's not blotted out, your name be found written in it, not blotted out. Well, a lot of people saying, well, if you're by grace and you're saved, you can't never be lost. Well, Father himself doesn't. Father's the one that he don't throw you away. But however, you can make a decision because of free will. You can make a decision. You don't have to say saved. You can turn around and turn your back on Father Yah and give up all that grace. You can do it. You can give up the grace. You can give up living right. You can give up being a part of that unit. You can turn your back and say, no, I don't believe anymore. And see, even in our legal system, an adoption, the child himself can annul his adoption. He can do it. They can file the petition, and like the parents, okay, even I'd say, like, for instance, Hasatan can come and he can file a petition and blah, blah, blah. And, when you follow him, you do his will, and you turn to him and turn away from your adopted parents or whatever. Now, this is, it might need a little bit of touch here and there. But for this is a quick example. But a child can go before the courts and reverse and then reverse the adoption, or get the adoption annulled altogether. Get his name blotted off. His dad's name he will no longer carry his adopted family's name. And so that's what happens. You get your name blotted out. Whenever you turn your back on it and you get your name blotted out of the Lamb's Book of Life, you are blotting your name out of the family, but it's your choice to do. That's your choice. You choose that. Okay? So yes, an adoption can be reversed. And yes, the child can do it. Yes, you can do it. And so that's what happens. So anybody that's telling you that once saved, always saved, you probably need to rethink that, because that's not what he says at all. It's not what he says at all, because if that was the case, then your name wouldn't be blotted out of the Lamb's Book of Life. And the thing about that is, it would have had to been written in first to be blotted out. When we get born again, when we come into the kingdom, it's like we're being adopted, right? And fathers didn't give us the rules so we can, he didn't give us the rules because of, to harm us or to make us prisoners. He gave us the rules because he loved us and he wanted us to have peace. He wanted us to have security in each other. He wanted us to love. He wanted us to stay healthy. He wanted all good for us. The commandments is about love. And that's all the commandments. That's all the ordinances. That's washing your hands, washing your feet. Don't play with dead animals. Don't kill, don't steal, don't destroy. If you see somebody hungry, feed them. Don't use people. Don't con people. Don't be narcissistic. Husbands, love your wife. Don't even be harsh with her. If you're harsh with her, he's not even going to hear your father. Women, respect your man. All of that. Everything he give. Don't marry don't have incest. Come on. Men, don't get with your father's wife. Everything he told us was for good. It was nothing for bad. The Pharisees did come and add things that Father didn't say, but get in there and study it out. See what it is. Anyway, I love you. So there's the answer to that question, but I love you. Bye-bye. Good night. Love, hugs. Shabbat Shalom.